Well, the silver markets through the forbidden landscape. Now, we've been actually seeing that oil has broken through 60, and I guess that's not too much of a no-brainer in some ways because it looks like it's policy versus the markets per se. And I also want to remind people, why did OPEC form in the first place? OPEC formed to control production to keep the prices up, not to open up the spigots to bring the prices down. That's why they used to have the embargo back in 1973, and they caused, basically an oil and gasoline shortage here in the nation, if you recall that, many years ago. That was not their original reason for why they came together as OPEC. But this cold winter, I just want to remind you, now, there's actually a site out there called Adapt 2030 on YouTube that goes extensively into why we're going to have colder and colder winters for the next 15 or 20 years. I know they got the global warming thing and all that type of stuff, and even National Geographic magazine will talk about colder winters, and they'll say it's due to global warming. So whether you believe in global warming or not, or you think it's hard science or not, let me put it belief, or let's not use that word belief. They're both coming up with the same conclusion that we're having colder and colder winters, that this winter may be one of the coldest we've had on record. We've already been breaking 140-year cold weather records, and that is going to make it impossible for oil to stay down because we've already had record snows, not just in the United States, record cold in the United States. I know the temperature is fluctuating up and down, but that's also occurred in Japan, China, Russia, and I think also in Europe. I'm not sure if it's in Europe too, but it's across the northern hemisphere. The North Polar air is coming down and getting into the populated areas, so that means there's going to be a lot of pressure on the price of oil because there's going to be record demands, and it's going to we've actually had in the past, due to this type of snow and ice and all that type of stuff, that the infrastructure almost shut down temporarily with massive blackouts due to the electrical load from people using all the heat and electric heat and furnaces and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, it may happen or may not happen, but it's my guess it's going to happen. And I think the real reason they're trying to bring down the price of oil is to break Russia, and I don't think they're going to be able to do it. So anyway, the Dow looks like the bubble that's been blowing up in the Dow and the S&P is beginning to burst. I know it's been up a little bit today, but it's still off a couple hundred points from its height. And you're noticing that silver and the other precious metals and even other commodities except for oil is decreasing, is going up while other things are decreasing. Oil's decreasing, but you know what, I'm going to tell you this. Oil's decreasing in price as a commodity, but it's also going to the profitability is going to be reflected in that in the next financials. So all you people that are preppers out there waiting for the sky to fall and you're out there in your tree or whatever the hell you're doing, this is your tree stand, this is your prepper tree stand. I don't know, man. It's just like one of those imaginary things. I don't think any prepper in their right mind would go in something like this, but it could be. It could be. If you're a little bit imaginative. But anyway, the thing is, there's like a lot of strange things going on in the markets, and it's almost like everything's an upside down question mark, and that's just the way things are growing. It's going in things that it's moving in directions that are irrational, and I think what's going on, it's actually the markets are being manipulated. But while they're being manipulated, actually Vladimir Putin, he's no dummy, man. I mean, everybody that's smart is dumb in some ways, but he's smart because he's gotten his position by not being dumb overall, that's for sure. But he's dealing a lot more with India. He's making agreements with India about supplying India with Russian arms. He's going to train their army. So he's finding new markets for things that Russia produces besides energy. He's also trying to get into the areas he really needs the Arctic, and he's trying to move the military into the Arctic to keep them ahead of the game and for oil exploration, to keep in competition with, new competition that's coming from shale oil from the United States. But the problem is they cut them off from the technology. But the other thing is, since BP is attached and Exxon is all hooked in with the Russians, it's hurting them too. Everything's tied together. Everything's tied together. And that's one of the big problems. So when you're trying to really figure out what's going on, like old girl here with the kitty cat shirt, it's really something. It's like for every move they make, there's another thing that happens that could be something not in their favor. Not that I think I wouldn't want to be in Russia's shoes. I can tell you that right now, because if you're looking at the GDP of what country really gets hurt the most as far as GDP goes when oil prices go down, every other country pretty much, well, not every country, but it's like Russia especially, their GDP goes way down. In the United States, the GDP goes up. Well, most countries, the GDP goes up when oil prices go down, but not in Russia, and not in Venezuela either. So, but it looks like there's a hidden agreement that OPEC is actually being told by the USA to bring the prices down and keep the production up, because that is the exact opposite of why OPEC was formed. So anyway, but in the meantime, even though we have a lot more oil prices, dropping here in the United States and energy prices across the board, I think unemployment is pretty bad. Like this guy says, he dropped off by aliens, needs some tacos, man. I don't think things are doing that great in the United States, despite. That's not to say that it's hopeless, because, there's always, if people keep a positive attitude, there's always new things that can come up. That's easy to say, but not easy to do. But the thing is, if you actually look at how Americans spend their time, a lot of it is wasted on a lot of superfluous stuff. And it's a matter of just keep moving, keep hustling, and you will find things that will be beneficial to you, and you will survive. Sometimes when people are down in the dumps, that's really when they have the biggest problem, because what defeats you right off the bat is if you think you're defeated. So, that's another thing in general with the economy, too. It's a lot of it's psychology. And a lot of times the elite know this, too. That's why they always try to paint a rosy picture, because if by uplifting people's spirits, it makes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you knock down people's spirits, it makes it a self-fulfilling prophecy the other way too. You really don't know the future. Unexpected things can happen. So, but I don't think the economy's doing that great in the United States, because actually what's going on, there's a lot more disparity between the wealthy and the poor. That's really what's going on. Even if the GDP is going up and the economy overall is looking good, it's really going in the hands of the few. We know that. So anyway. But as far as old lady winter, we'll call it old man winter, we'll call it old lady or young lady winter. Young lady winter, I think, is going to be the monkey wrench in the works that's kind of going to screw up the Western elite's plan to, cause, foster almost like an upheaval in Russia and get Vladimir Putin out of power, because, it's something that you really can't predict exactly how cold the winter is. But if you like, I want to repeat that again. If you want to look at that YouTube channel, Adapt 2030, and I knew about a lot of this stuff from before, and it's like I'm not going to really rehash all that on my channel or anything, but I knew about it from before. There's solar cycles, and we're actually converging on several solar cycles that are going to bring a much, much, much colder winter as maybe 400 years ago, not even 100 years ago or 200 years ago. And 400 years ago, to give you an example, the sea between Scandinavia and Denmark, the Baltic Sea, was actually frozen over all year, and they used to travel on in roads and have hotels built on the ice pack and all that type of stuff. So we're going into that. Getting it closer and closer to that. The pendulum has just swung. That's why we've had the global warming pause. And I know people will argue about that, but whether you think it's from man-made or solar, they pretty much all agree that we're going to be getting cooler overall. And that's why I think oil prices are actually going to start moving up. And this plan to keep them down is not going to work long term, because Russia can't hold on long enough. And Putin's making a lot of good inroads into Europe, unfortunately. I'm not on his side. I'm not a Gerald Celente. I'm not like these other people, Mike Rivero cheering on Russia. But I can tell you right now that, they're going to be doing a lot of things in the future. And actually, if the Russians ever tried to invade Italy like they did in, Ukraine, the Pope would send out his army of nuns with their, special weapons and fight them off. Because, you don't go messing around with the Pope. You know what I mean? So, but, what's going on right now in the markets, though, and, oh, by the way, I just want to point out, I have a picture here of Goldie. Goldie the cat has been doing very well. He's actually snuggled up in the cheetah blankets and the cheetah pillows, and it is actually fairly cold here on the eastern side of the United States, probably with, some snow in areas and cold rain, and even all the way down to southern United States. But Goldie the cat, that stray cat, he came by, and he's doing really good. So he's a friendly little person, man. He's a human. He's a little furry human. So that's how we think of him, and he's doing very, very well, actually. So and he's good friends with the other two guys. So just want to put that in here. But anyway, as we're looking at the markets in silver and palladium and platinum and gold, the things have been going up today. I mean, now silver, it could take a dump. You never know that. But, if you look back in 2008, 2009, actually the markets I think they hit rock bottom in early 2009. Silver, gold, and platinum and palladium and oil had already bottomed out. And the markets bottomed after that. And, the reason that happens is, like I said before, with oil, 25, and the energy sector is about 25%, energy and research and development on energy. The entire energy sector is about 25% of the S&P. So if you're not making any money on oil, which, because you can see it's down to like below $60, it's the lowest it's been in over 5 years, even with inflation, so it's even lower than that. Well, you figure out what kind of profitability they're going to have on the bottom line, right? So, anyway. And, if there's a fear factor, too, it's going to bring, if there's a fear in the markets, after they initially go into dollars, a lot of times gold is the thing they go into because that has a lot to do with the fear factor of uncertainty. It's just like when they have wars in the Middle East, but that they don't even need to have a war in the Middle East, even under these circumstances. Because, like I said, I think what's going to happen is if it's actually extremely cold this winter, we've been seeing a lot of this. I think there was record colds in 2010 in the UK, if I recall that right. It was right after the financial crisis, and it was like they had more snow in Germany, UK. They had an airport roof collapse in Paris, France, or something from so much snow. There was a lot of snow, of course, in the United States and across the eastern seaboard and like New York City. And there's been off and on. Now, like you said, the pendulum's swinging. We're actually going to be getting colder to about 2035 to 2040 is probably where it's going to bottom out. But this spell is probably going to continue even beyond that. But this next cycle, it's not going to play out all the way through until we go another, good 20 years or so. 20 years or so. So this is just the beginning of it. So like what I'm saying is, if there's a lot of pressure on oil, and there isn't much profitability on the mines, even with the low oil prices. But like I said, low oil prices also bring down the S&P. And once that happens, it brings down a lot more. So like I said, winter is actually going to cause the whole thing to spring back because of demand. And in the meantime, yes, oil prices are hitting record lows for the lowest they've been in 5 years. But winter is going to cause it all to spring back. And it's actually a good sign when you're seeing the markets coming down and the precious metals going up while oil's going down. That's actually a good sign for silver, gold, platinum, and palladium. That actually is a very good sign. So when the markets go down, I do not expect gold, oil, and silver to go down because I think they're so severely depressed as it is. And what will happen is, I think this winter, it's not going to be next year. I think this winter oil prices are going to turn around. So, and in the meantime, you should be stocking up on actually some of this stuff because, if you're a prepper, if you can get cheaper diesel fuel at these prices, go ahead and get some more. You don't need to be necessarily be getting silver, because I think that when this, the SHIT hits the fan, we have that scenario. The price of gasoline, the price of diesel fuel is going to be through the roof, and diesel fuel is something you can at least you can store for quite a while. So, the bubble in the S&P and the Dow is going to be breaking fairly soon. I think it's going to start breaking when the reporting for the energy sector comes in January for the fourth quarter of 2014. That is actually what's going to start causing the markets to really break. Because, like I said, I'll repeat that again, it's very important, because research and development and the entire energy sector combined is about 25% of the S&P. And at the prices of crude oil right now, they have to be making lousy profits. And lousy profits usually, well, almost always equate with, when you have a new report coming out that the profitability of the company is way down, and the financials are stating this, that just come out, you will see stock sell-offs and, equity sell-offs, and the prices will drop. That's why they're already dropping, but they're going to drop more when you actually see how much money they're really making. They're not making as much money as they should be. And like I said, the thing with OPEC, it's not, OPEC was actually, formed to restrict the export of oil. And, in other words, they always had one member in OPEC that would say, well, we're, even though we're trying to slow down our production here and there, and these countries are, somebody else would increase their production and try to grab the money in the market, right? Well, OPEC was formed so they would hold back production to keep the prices high. So they're doing the exact opposite of what OPEC was formed for, and that's very suspicious. It's pretty much a no-brainer. It looks like, I think the U.S. is behind it, actually, I mean, I'm not a cheerleader for Russia, but I can pretty much see what's going on here, man. I mean, I know that's what the Russians are saying, but I pretty much can see what's going on here. But I don't think it's going to work, because Putin's making inroads in other areas, and it's kind of hurting our industry. It is hurting our industry, too, and it's also hurting BP and Exxon, who are tied in with Rosneft, and, they're tied in with the Russian oil companies, too. So, and when we have this extremely cold winter, I don't see how they're going to keep the price down. I mean, it costs so much to get a barrel of oil, and I know not all areas are the same cost of production, but when it's at this low, most of the areas, it's below the cost of production. So how the hell are they going to do it? So, it's a good question, right? Anyway, I figured I'd just put some common sense out here, because, we actually got some pretty good news right now, and you can see that, hey, the prices of gold, platinum, and silver, actually palladium, has been doing quite well even for the last few years. Not too bad. Palladium is not, actually it hit one of its biggest heights just a couple months ago. Now, I can tell you one thing about palladium here. I just want you to see this at the end, because this is how these guys shoot themselves in the foot all the time. At least palladium is not being touted as the canary in the gold mine. You know how, like, David Morgan or Mike Maloney talks about silver, and he goes, or gold, it's the canary in the gold mine. It's showing the dollar isn't worth this and that. At least they don't talk about that in that way about when they're talking about palladium. They don't even talk about palladium hardly ever. But if they did, and it was commonly perceived that palladium prices being high meant a weak dollar, the powers that be would attack the price of palladium too. I guarantee it. And I'm glad they don't talk about it that way, because I'm thinking, I just wanted to go up because I got this stuff. You know what I mean? So, I'm glad they kind of leave their, they don't talk about it, because it's a matter of, I think palladium now is, to so much of the physical supply is actually controlled by the Russians, that what more tensions we have with Russia, the higher the palladium prices are going to go. it's not only supply and demand, but even with supply and demand, we also have a lot more demand than supply, and it's been continuing to go that way with palladium. And actually, as we go into this green earth type thing here, with new technologies, they use a lot more palladium in hybrid cars, and also new technology to produce alternative energy. So, and also for storage of hydrogen, and also the processing and of hydrogen too, and the filtration of hydrogen. They use palladium for that to purify the hydrogen and process the hydrogen. So, alternative energy is actually going to create a lot more demand on palladium too. So, you know, as we get run out of cheaper and cheaper fossil fuels, or whatever you want to call them, fossil or whatever kind they are, we are going to be turning more and more to palladium. So that the future does look pretty bright for that. Just don't say that it's a canary in a coal mine that the dollar is collapsing because, as soon as you say that, the powers that be attack it. The powers that be attack it. So just keep your mouth shut about that deal, man. We just want the price of silver, gold, and palladium and platinum to go up, and we want to make some money, and we want to have a lot more money to spend in the good old USA amongst our domestic economy. So that's the goal here. It's not about jumping for joy about the collapse of the United States or anything, as some people seem to be doing. Gerald Celente, the Chooch, and Mike Rivero, Anyway, I just have to mention that because I'm not anti-American, but I realize there's a lot of intramural competitive games going on between the New World Order elite, and Vladimir Putin is part of that game too. They are, but there seems to be some kind of intramural competition going on. But old Vlad, pretty much, he has his ducks in line, man. He's not too stupid, man. I can tell you that right now. He is not too dumb. He's not too dumb. He's dumb in some ways. By going into Ukraine, that was a dumb thing because it cost him too much. But in the other ways, he's making up for his dumb moves. So anyway, he's like a cat with 9 lives, like old girl here with the cat with the orange T-shirt. He always seems to land on his feet, so he's not too stupid, man. He's not too stupid, I can tell you that right now. I mean, I'm not on his side, but I can tell you he's not dumb. He's not dumb.